Hey, welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Bradinsky, and sharing that split screen with me is Jesse Reynolds, Democratic candidate for the Wallingford Town Council. Jesse, thanks for coming back on the Citizen Mike Show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be back. And I'm a big fan, but I know I've been on the show before, but I'm happy to be back on the show.
Good. Um, so you're running for town council, you're knocking on doors, you're talking to a lot of people. Probably we agree that the hottest topic in Wallingford today is whether or not we should go one high school or two high schools and the consequences of those decisions. So we see on various lawns signs that say, should be one high school. Other lawns say two high schools. Do you have a sign on your lawn?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Tell me why. Tell me why you haven't picked a side.
Well, I mean, well, I have an opinion about which I prefer. So I honestly prefer one school. I prefer one school because I think that it'll be academically enriching. I think it'll create a better opportunity for sports in the schools in terms of participation. I know that, for example, Sheehan High School doesn't have a boys JV soccer team this year. I think the availability of courses will increase because you'll have a larger pooled student population. And my son in particular was affected this year because he had to drop Spanish 5 in order to accommodate his AP courses as well as his CNA course that he's taking as part of the medical careers track. And he was really upset about it because the two things he said when he was little was that he wanted to be bilingual in Spanish and that he wanted to be a doctor. And so this year he had to choose between a medical career path and a bilingual certification. They did kind of offer a couple of things, but they didn't come highly recommended. And so now he's in a position where he had to, he's no longer taking Spanish. And that's unfortunate, but I don't believe that things like that would occur if we had more students under one roof.
Okay. Um, how do you think the decision-making process is going to unfold? And sort of take it one quarter of a year at a time, or any way you want to do that. How do we reach a decision?
So I believe the next steps is that the Board of Ed would come back to the town council with an ask for a certain amount of money to go to the next steps in terms of the planning process. I know that when they were there the last time, and a lot of the folks came out, to speak about their opinions about the schools. I know two of the sticking points, or the main sticking point, I know at least with Councilor Fishbein, was the traffic concerns, the busing and things like that. But what I envision is probably in 2024, the Board of Education will come back. They'll request for a portion of whatever the overall money that gets spent will be, and that will further the project along.
Okay, so let's assume they come back in 2024. They make a presentation. They hit a lot of the details, not all the details, because it's a huge topic. But in connection with that presentation, they make this request, and now you have to cast a vote.
Um, well, so I think that my vote would probably be in favor of what the Board of Education recommends because I believe that they're all hardworking folks who give a lot of time. They've done their homework. I've read the presentations. I would say my hangups where I might ask questions might be around the location a little bit. Still, I mean, It's not that I'm not convinced. It's just I haven't heard enough. I haven't had enough information presented to me or given to me that would suggest that there is absolutely no other place in town that we could find a parcel of land big enough to build a high school and the needed area around it. I mean, Barnes Road, the industrial park area, there's a lot of vacant buildings there. I mean, I'm not sure, right? But again, backing off, sort of trying not to step in the pool that the Board of Ed operates in because the town council and the Board of Ed are very separate. Those are the questions I would have is, have we exhausted all possibilities on the location? Because the things I'm hearing at doors, and in particular in doors around Lyman Hall High School, are concerns about increased traffic, larger building, and all of those things. So, I think we have a little bit, I would like a little bit more information on exhausting the possibilities of another location. But I am ultimately in favor of what the Board of Education recommends, and I am in favor, given our projected decline in population, I am in favor of a single high school. But I understand people's, resistance to it, whether it be steeped in tradition around Lyman Hall and Sheehan and all the traditions that exist. I understand all that. I'm not ignorant to it. I don't throw those feelings away. It's just, to me, from it'll actually cost more to renovate the two high schools. And frankly, the high school that would cost the most to renovate is the school that's the least occupied right now, and that's Sheehan. The Sheehan cost is what was projected, I believe, was like 30 million more than the Lyman Hall cost. So we're going to be investing in a school with a larger declining population, and I just don't see that as the best option.
Um, what I'm hearing is that there's a possibility, I'm hedging now, there's a possibility that as soon as the Wallingford Town Council appropriates some money to further the one high school concept along, it'll trigger an effort for a referendum. Are you hearing the same thing?
I've heard it suggested. I've heard it suggested that that once the town council acts and appropriates the money, at that point that can trigger a referendum, like the referendum they had in Wood and Kaplan, the referendum that they had about the parking lot behind Simpson Court. Yeah, it could trigger a referendum. I just, I don't know how that would turn out. I think we had a lot of people in town hall who were upset and wanted to express their concerns. And I think that's fantastic. I always get excited when I see town hall full. Maybe not as much during COVID, but I always get excited to see town hall filled with people who want to, give their opinion. And they had kids there and teachers there. I mean, it was fantastic. I just, just as a person that would have to make the ultimate decision, I am leaning towards the concept that a single high school would bring the town together. It would unite us. It could point us in a new direction for a new future. I want to look at all of this as exciting possibilities. I think I used the word exciting when I wrote the letter to the editor. It's an exciting time to be in Wallingford. We're going to have a new mayor no matter what. We're going to have a new direction no matter what. Why not take an approach where we look at it from a standpoint that this is a really great opportunity to make something great? I mean, if people haven't read the plans of what was proposed, whether it be a television studio in the school and all this other stuff, I mean, I would love to have my children go to a high school like that. Unfortunately, my son is a junior and I don't have any more children, but my sister's children, who are, toddlers, that would be something that they would have. And if I got to be a part of making that happen, I'd be quite proud.
Let's change the topic, because I think you buttoned that up pretty well as to how you feel and how you'd act as a counselor. But I want to change subjects. A topic that may come up for the next council is what to do with the old train station. Let me narrow that. How much money would the town council agree to throw at the old train station before it said enough's enough, tear it down or whatever? And if you, I don't know what your answer is going to be, but if it ends up being a substantial amount of money that you would put into that building, what do you hope to get back realistically in exchange for the tax dollars you put in? Just address my comments any way you want there.
Well, I think there's two elements to what we need to do with the train station. The first is we have to fix the issues that exist. So the roof, the things that the building commission pointed out, those things have to be addressed because there might be safety concerns or other things. I don't know. I was in favor of renovating or rebuilding a new community pool for the tune of $5.5 million to $7 million, depending on how you look at it, because I thought the long-term investment, bonded out over time, I thought the long-term investment would benefit the town. I don't think the train station has that same kind of benefit. So I wouldn't envision me saying, yes, let's throw $5 million or even $2 million at it. I think the approach that they took, where they tried to seek money from the state in terms of grants, is probably the best way to go first. But really, I would have to know what the cost would be for what they would want to do with it before I could really, say I'm in favor of this or not, and not in favor of that. I think that it has a really good location. I think it's a beautiful building. And I think it has potential for a lot of uses, but I don't know if that's something that the government should be doing or if it's something that we should be allowing people to invest in, like it be a public-private partnership. Or, I mean, I know it's on the historic registry of landmarks, so I don't know what the red tape is in selling something like that, and then what you can do with it. But again, I'd entertain all kinds of suggestions. I don't know what it would cost to renovate something like that, but again, I don't see it as having a direct benefit like something a pool in town might have, or other investments.
One of the claims, and I want to get your reaction to this argument. One of these claims or arguments is that the old train station, a renovated old train station, is the key to rejuvenating the lower downtown. That if you can just renovate that, get an occupant in there, the lower downtown will blossom. I'm a skeptic on that, but I'd like to engage. What do you think of both sides of that argument?
I don't think that that's the I don't think renovating the train station will kickstart a a development boom in the lower downtown area. I think renovating the train station, or at least fixing the outside of it, and addressing the safety issues in the basement and other things that have been pointed out. I think that's just part of stewardship, and that's as a town councilor, that's one of the things that I would be tasked with. So my first priority is to just make the building safe. Now, moving forward, I think that whole area in the lower downtown has the potential for a lot of things. I think the parks are ripe for investment. I think there could be further development around the dog park area on Garden Road. I think connecting the dog park to Community Lake in a meaningful way will bring back that area. But there also has to be investment from developers in those neighborhoods to, maybe, I don't know, create some new types of housing, or perhaps renovate some of the existing housing in a way that would, sort of attract people. But I don't think the train station is the beginning and the end of the discussion about lower downtown. I think making it safe to walk around, to be inside, safe to breathe the air in the basement, I think those should be all on the first year punch card of what we address. I think those are the kinds of things that we're going to need in the first year of the new administration to address right off the bat. What are the immediate safety concerns? And then the long-term spending stuff we'll have to prioritize over a period of time, because there's just no way that you're going to have enough. You can't raise taxes enough in a single year to address every single concern in town. And quite frankly, you wouldn't be reelected if you did anyway. So, it's a double-edged sword there. But I do think it's an important piece of the lower downtown. It's a beautiful building. It's got a brand new parking lot behind it. So, maybe if they put something in there, that parking lot would be, put to good use once they put the stripes in it, so you know where to park. But that's I would prefer to see more done with the Community Lake area, for example. I think that has a lot of potential with with some basic investment and some good ideas. And using the dog park as an example, the dog park was taken on by people and it got turned into a public park. I mean, that's those kinds of things. That's the kind of the buy-in and involvement we need to make that area come back. So it can't just be like fix the train station and everything will happen. I don't think that that's possible.
Got it. Want to change topics again. And it has to do something that's been well publicized in the Record Journal lately, and it's condition of our buildings and grounds, parks, town hall. I'm excluding the schools because we talked about that, excluding the train station because we just talked about that. So it's kind of everything else that's publicly owned. And a lot of reporting on the deteriorating conditions of those buildings and grounds. And I just want to give you an example that is the most obvious to folks that might casually visit town hall. So if you go up to the second floor from the parking lot through the sliding glass doors at town hall, you walk up the stairs and you see plaster has fallen off the wall, discolored plaster. I mean, it looks like a slum. You walk down the corridor, there's stains on the ceiling tiles. And this has been going on year after year after year. I mean, the mayor has to notice that. All the town councilors have had to notice that. Departments have, so on and so forth. Nothing has changed. And I wonder why it hasn't changed. And if you're on the town council, you're elected, you're sitting there, you have a shot at doing something that will change all this. And I just wonder what that shot looks like.
Um, well, first of all, I think it's a shame that the building is in the condition it's in, because recently I went in to pay my tax bill, had to go down to the assessor's office. The people that were there were really helpful. Um, they were very nice, and so I felt kind of bad that they were working in those conditions, because the building is in many respects, falling apart around them. I think it sends a message to people who come in from outside of town, about the town, that's really an unfair message. And so I think that, the town hall is overdue for maintenance and obviously upgrades in a lot of areas. Again, I kind of go back to the question of what's it all going to cost. But as my role as counselor, I mean, I believe if anybody were to come in with respect to anything that would be related to town hall or expenditures, my first question would be, is any of this money intended to fix town hall? And I would continue to ask that question at every chance that I had, because as you mentioned, um, well, I think part of the issue that we have is we've had a government in place for a long time that the people of Wallingford obviously liked, because they kept reelecting the same mayor and so forth. But I think with that came a certain understanding that this is just the way things are. And so maybe at a certain point, people used to ask a lot more questions, and maybe they just decided not to, because they focused their energies elsewhere. And I can't speak to what all the inner doings of town hall are, and how busy people are. I know everyone's busy, and I know that some departments are understaffed and things. But I would really just, at every opportunity I had, bring this to light, especially during budget season. Asking like how much money is going to go into, let's say, updating the bathrooms in town hall. I mean, my father worked at the registrar of voters office for a few years, and I know for a fact that he was sending town councilors photos of different parts of the building back in 2016. So and again, we can say COVID kind of eliminated 3 years of a lot of stuff, but we're 7 years later, and a lot of things haven't been improved or changed. We're overdue. I think we need a top to bottom list of everything that needs to be addressed in the town hall, done by people who will estimate what it costs. And then at that point, we'll start to have to like pick and choose low hanging fruit, easy fixes, and then long term things. And can we bundle that with other things? For example, like, we're going to upgrade our technology, obviously. We're going to need an IT department probably to handle that, more so than what we already have, because it'll be a larger undertaking. At a certain point, when we're rewiring or doing other things, that could be shared costs across other projects. So there might be ways to save money, or to bundle it in ways that will actually be of cost benefit. And those are the kinds of things that I would look for. So and the long and short of it is, I would not let the issue die. If I'm only a 2-year counselor, I will, from the beginning to the end, ask, what are we doing about town hall? What are we doing about our infrastructure? What are we doing? What are we doing? And at the end, at least if I'm a one-term person, I can say at least I asked. But really, I'm going there to work with 8 other people to try and come up with solutions, so that we can spend the money wisely of the town and invest it in a way that's proactive instead of reactive.
One thing the town council can do is to go along with a tax increase. I mean, we need to balance, the town needs to balance and understand, if we're looking for upgrades, renovations, modernization, so on and so forth, on sort of an urgent basis. I mean, we don't want to wait 15 years for some of these things to get done. The town, in my opinion, never had a sense of urgency. And so things deteriorated over a long period of time. Urgency, however, has a cost. Now you're in a seat, let's say, in between, I don't know who's going to get elected and reelected. So I was going to name some names. I'm not going to anymore, but you're over there, you're sitting on the Democratic side of the Wallingford Town Council desk, and a tax increase is presented to you. And the reason is, we're playing catch up. And, the answer isn't always grants and bonding, so on and so forth. It's going to cost more money. Are you a tax freeze guy? would you go along with a tax increase? It has to be justified, of course, it goes without saying. But I wanted your view on that.
I can't commit to zero tax increase. I can't commit to that because I don't know. I don't know what the bill's going to be. And I can't in good conscience say that you have my word that I will freeze taxes in the first year, unless unless there's good cause. So what you're talking, I don't philosophically have this opinion that taxes should never increase. I'm not of the opinion that government wastes money at every corner. I do think that there is wasteful spending. I do think that there are areas where we can be smarter. And I think it kind of goes back to say taking a proactive approach to the way that we address all these things. Um, if there are things that require fixing, and and I am the lone person that's holding out, I'll stand with my other counselors and vote for a tax increase. I mean, again, it's sort of a straw man argument right here because I'm debating something that hasn't happened yet,
Right.
and nothing in front of me. But I will say that I will not make I'm not going to commit that I won't raise taxes because I don't know what budget I'm going to be presented, and it may be a budget that's presented as we have no choice in this. My questions will be, can we offset it? Will attrition in departments, will retirees, will we find redundancies when we upgrade our technology? I'll ask all those questions. I'll ask if there are grants available. I'll ask if there's ways that we can bond these things or wrap them. I mean, I'll ask all those questions. But if at the end of the day, doing the best thing for the town ultimately results in a tax increase, I can't say that I would not vote for that. Some people can, and you know what? They philosophically have an opinion, and they'll draw a line in the sand, and they will not. But there's also a little convenience in being one or two people on a 9-person board that can hold on to that because you can still say it and it's going to pass. And I'm not that kind of person. I may vote against something, but I'm going to support the action of I may vote in favor or against something, but I am part of the town council and I will support the actions of the town council because that's my job.
There has been some reporting that recreational facilities, athletic fields, parks, so on and so forth, have been under maintained, under repaired. And the answer may not be it's just a matter of money. That may be 90% of it. I don't know. But there may be more of a systemic reason why we can't keep up with some of these maintenance issues, in the fields and in the parks. But I don't know. I just wanted to throw that at you. Do you smell sort of a deeper organizational problem with how the town has been run so far that has been interfering with keeping up with maintenance and repairs?
I think that everybody who works for the town of Wallingford, cares about the town, and I think that the departments do their best to maintain things to the best of their ability. I think there are probably times during this administration where people in departments didn't ask for things because they knew the answer was no. So I think there's part of that. I think sometimes it's unfair to say that we have to fire this person or why is this happening or any of those things. And so the thing that I'm sort of holding on to is it should, if anyone has any questions or concerns, you should try to bring it up through the proper channels, make a phone call, send an email. People will respond and they'll give you a good reason for it. Part of what I do know is that Public Works is understaffed. And I know that, like, for example, I know about the soccer fields, and the soccer fields get mowed once a week. And the problem this year is that we've had an extreme grow season. The grass grew, grow a foot overnight sometimes. If my grass has never been greener, my backyard looks like a golf course, and usually it's yellow by now. And so I think sometimes what ends up happening is because a lot of our soccer fields are in wetlands and they're only mowed once a week. Well, you have to mow them when you can actually drive the machines on it. So what ends up happening is you high cut the grass and then you can't cut it 8 different ways to get it off. So I guess the questions that I would have for those departments is, is your equipment adequate? Are you properly staffed? Or are you having a high turnover? Is it possible that one of the reasons why some of these things don't get fixed is because you have a high turnover employees? What are the reasons why? Some things that I've heard ancillary. There's a lot of unions to deal with in town, and I don't mean that as an anti-union way at all, but they all have differing packages and wages and all of these things. And so it's a really complicated problem to just say like, well, it's just, this person isn't doing their job or that person doesn't know how to operate a lawnmower. I don't think it's that simple. I think it's a systemic problem that we as a town could figure out a way to address, but we really need to go to the department heads, bring everybody into the same room and allow people to have open discussions without fear of retribution or fear that, something down the line could happen or actually to let them know we're here now. It's a new administration. It's a new government. We're here to, work with you, to make your jobs easier, to make our lives better. Like that's the kind of discussion I want to have with these people. I'm, I'm, I'm getting too old to get to the point where it's finger pointing and these things, because none of those things ever happen. What results is hurt feelings. Um, people agree to things in a room and then they go outside and they still don't like each other. Like all of these things are just real world dealings that happen everywhere. And so I think it's a complex issue, and it's just not a simple matter of people aren't doing their jobs. I think it's a symptom of a larger problem that we need to do a much better job of organizing how we take care of these things. And part of it is money, but you can't throw money at a problem. I think part of it is letting people know that we are that this is a new, regardless of Mayor Cervoni or Mayor O'Connell. My vote's for Mayor O'Connell, obviously. But either way, there's going to be a new sheriff in town, if you will. And hopefully either sheriff will be, open ears to the department heads, listen to what their concerns are, and ask them, how can you do your jobs better? That's the first question you should always ask people. How can you do your job better? Not why did you mess this up or why isn't this right? But how can you do your job better, and what can we do to help you do that? And I think if we can have those discussions, that's how we'll improve our parks, and that's how we will get our buildings fixed. But if we don't start there, people instantly start from being offended, and we can't do that.
The way the budget season is laid out, if these conversations take place only during budget season, not going to have enough time.
I agree. And not to interrupt you, but one thing that I did hear from a couple of different people who've were nice enough to speak to me, but I'm not going to divulge who or from where. I think there needs to be a greater focus on the mayor's position, bringing together department heads more often. And in doing so, having more to report out to the council, and in doing so, have more to sort of, to update and talk about throughout the year. I agree. Budget season is the absolute worst time to get a list of things wrong, because you have like a couple of weeks to figure it out, and then you got to put a budget through. I think there needs to be a long-standing, sort of ongoing touching base and bringing updates. Again, not bringing people. I mean, the council meetings are late at night and they go into the late night. The last thing you want to do is bring someone there every month and just berate them or have the public berate them. I think it can be done in ways that, is much more efficient and much more effective, and gives people a better feeling about, being involved with that sort of thing.
I want to change the subject, John, and read a portion of a piece that you submitted to the Democratic Town Committee to try to get yourself endorsed, which you were, obviously. So I'm just going to read a portion of that. And while I read that, I'm going to put up on the screen, I hope I can do this technologically, a shot of your walking card that you've been handing out as you go door to door. So here's what you wrote in part. You say that you volunteered for organizations in town, having served on the Wallingford Soccer Club board, as well as serving as a coach and manager. You've been a part of the Wallingford Cub and Boy Scouting with Pack 28 and Troop 1 families for more than 10 years. You've also served on the Wallingford Public Library Board of Managers, and most recently, you served on the ARPA Application Review Committee. Your educational background includes a master's degree in research statistics and methods. Your professional background includes working with or for Yale University since 2002. It goes on, but I only have so much time to read it. So I want to change and get to our final topic, which is the issue of whether or not the town of Wallingford should attempt to get additional financial concessions from Choate. And just by way of context, this same issue, not with Choate, although Choate is always part of this conversation. But I remember Ashlar Village was the subject of this kind of discussion a couple of election cycles. And because in large part, there's no legal basis for getting more concessions out of Ashlar Village, it went nowhere. The mayor, as part of this discussion about Choate recently at a public meeting, also pointed that out. There's no legal basis to require or force Choate to add to Wallingford's treasury in any way, you know. So, but you were very vocal on this point. So I wanted to go to you and tell me what your thinking is and the practical steps, if any, that you have in mind to accomplish what you want.
Sure. So again, I think it goes back to starting with the conversation. It starts with, if how would I do it? Well, I could ask the chair to put something on the agenda that would invite Choate to come and, engage in a conversation about, some possible mutually beneficial arrangements that we could make between the town of Wallingford and Choate Rosemary Hall. Off the top of my, well, not off the top of my head, I've put a little bit of thought into this. The per pupil cost in Wallingford Public Schools is about $24,000 a year. And the cost of Wallingford, in particular, Sheehan High School, renting the ice rink at Choate is $20,000 a year. Now, I'm not suggesting that Choate write us a check for $20,000 that we hand back to them. But what I am suggesting is that we have a longer, again, proactive, forward-thinking conversation that, really puts it all out on the table and says, our schools need to be repaired. Our high schools, we mentioned earlier, our middle schools actually need more improvement. But getting back to Choate, to do that is going to require a lot of money. And it's going to be money from the state, and it's going to be money that's bonded, and it's probably going to be money that somehow wraps up into your tax bill as well. Well, what can we do to have a discussion with Choate that says, all right, well, let's hypothetically say you on average have about 5 to 10 students of faculty who are living in homes that do not pay any money into the tax rolls. These were once homes owned by people, now they're owned by Choate, and now they're dormitories or whatever you want to call them. Why can't we come up with a formula for the number of children that are in our school systems that Choate then allows us use of their grounds at no additional charge? I'm not suggesting that if the mayor, whoever that may be, would like to have a longer discussion about a pilot payment or something like that with Choate, that's their prerogative to initiate. That's what the mayor said. The mayor said that he would have to speak with Choate and then arrange for something like that. I'm not necessarily advocating for anything like that yet. I'm just trying to think of common sense ways that we can address the concerns of a lot of people in town who feel like Choate has a relationship with the town that benefits them more than it benefits the town. We heard a lot of people get up and speak at that meeting, and in particular nonprofits and also the Chamber of Commerce. And I understand all those points, and I don't dispute them, but it does, if we say, I was just driving through town behind a school bus and I saw 4 kids get off, right? That's 24,000 times 8. That's almost $100,000. That's per year. So why can't we have a discussion, an open discussion, and say, well, how about we, in exchange for this, you don't charge us for use of the ice rink, or in times where Sheehan's turf field isn't ready in time for the season, and the soccer team and the soccer teams and the field hockey team are displaced, why should there be an added charge for that? Why can't it be just, again, good stewardship? If if they're a good steward for the town and we are good partners with Choate, why can't we have a zero gain relationship? I'm not talking about asking them to give us money. If somebody else wants to have that discussion, I would be glad to hear it. But I'm just talking about just common sense stuff like that.
A concern that I have, I'm sympathetic to the thoughts and the approach, and I'm, sympathetic to where your heart is in this. But it's executing on this thought that gives me some concern. So I can see an item on the agenda, the Wallingford Town Council agenda. It's a matter for public discussion. It ends up being a session where half of the audience bashes Choate for taking advantage of their tax exempt status, so on and so forth. And the other half of the audience, loyal to Choate, appreciative of everything they do. And that is the public hearing. Choate is kind of caught in the middle. They probably show up, a little coercion there. But I'm not sure that anything good comes of that public spectacle. In your role as Wallingford Town Council, there's just limited things that you can do. But would you react to my concern? To what extent does that have merit?
I've gotten up and talked at town council meetings for a long time. And sometimes I got up and just made suggestions, and sometimes I asked questions. And there were probably times where maybe I was salty. I think that that's to be expected. I think what I would do as a town councilor is I would try to do it in the most respectful way possible. And I would try to bring decorum to the discussion where it's not a simple matter of yelling about they've got money and they're not giving it to us. That's just not, it's a fast way to have people put their hands over their ears and stop listening. So to me, it would be more about an open discussion with our good friends at Choate and their lovely campus that, I don't think that anyone would be averse to a discussion that said, for example, the Kohler building. And if you talk to people on the Board of Education, there were, I don't want to call them promises, but there were things that were said that building would be open if they were allowed to build it there, that building would be open for educational use by Wallingford Public Schools. And to date, I don't think that really happens. And so those kinds of things creates an image that, Choate doesn't care about the town. Choate, Choate benefits more and those sorts of things. Now, people will bring up that Choate put, replace the benches in the center of town. Choate helped rebuild the Doolittle Park. And again, like, I think that that's fantastic. But if it were done in a way where it was, here are a list of benefits that Choate receives from the town at no additional cost, and here are a list of things that the town needs, I don't think if we approach it from that way, I don't think it should grow hostile. I think if people get up and they're hostile on the mic, I think there's nothing we can do about that. But I think I would try to do it in a way that respects all the parties involved, as well as respects the fact that Choate doesn't owe us a cent, right? They don't owe us a cent because of their status. The state, it's not just the town, the state allows them to have that status. So, I don't know if I could. I don't think that I would single-handedly be able to control the climate of a room. But if it's not a well-attended meeting, then we don't have anything to worry about. If the room's full, then who knows? Who knows who'll get up and who'll ask and who'll say what. But from me up in the high chairs up there, that's my approach. It's let's have discussions. And you know what? If Choate says no, thank you, and they walk away, then we move on to the next steps. I don't know what those would be, but I'd like to open it up there. Hey, can we get use of your fields? Or here's an example.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
One quick one. Wallingford Soccer League currently doesn't have a turf field that has access to. We don't have access to either of the turf fields at Lyman or Sheehan. Choate has at least two on their campus. In the event that this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but there's a thing called the State Cup. State Cup is all the towns in Connecticut play in this tournament. And when I was a kid, all the teams and all the towns used to play, but now it's a much smaller tournament. The rain causes rainouts at our fields disproportionately to other places. And in most places, they will move it to a turf field in the event of rain. Even if that provision was just said, like, hey, we have a state cup game. This is a game that we cannot reschedule. Could we have access to that field? Even if that kind of an arrangement was made, things like that. And those things don't require a single cent. It just requires, a good natured relationship between two entities. And I think that's where we can get with a lot of this stuff.
Well, the bottom line question is, assuming you're elected, do you send a memo to the chairman of the Wallingford Town Council and saying, put this Choate item on the agenda? Do you get that done and then, take your chances with a meeting?
With the melee?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, with a melee.
Yeah, with a melee. At some point, I would do my best. I mean, we have a lot to do. Again, new administration. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get fixed. I can't guarantee that this is anything that I would be able to get on an agenda and make anything meaningful out of in the first 90 days, 6 months, whatever.
Right.
But in the 2 years I'm there, I'm going to try my hardest to have that discussion, because I think it's a common sense way to address the concerns of people who feel that Choate should give more to the town, but it's done in a way that Choate doesn't have to hand over a single penny. It's more about the facilities that they have and access to them. I don't think that there's really I don't think that there's anything controversial there. Anybody can find something controversial about anything, but in my opinion, I don't think it's that controversial. I think it's and I think it's win-win. And yes, I will try to do that in 2 years if elected.
Let's make that the final word. We've covered a lot of ground. Good job, and thanks for coming on the show and addressing these questions, which are controversial, really. So thank you and good luck on the campaign trail, Jesse Reynolds. And thank you, viewers, for watching the Citizen Mike Show. And thanks to WPAA TV for broadcasting the Citizen Mike Show. And traditionally, it's 9 at night. It's Citizen Mike on WPAA. Good night, everybody. Good night, Jesse. Thanks.